Welcome to Hedgehog's Hungry Hodgepodge. This week we're making a savory pie that may be more familiar to you than you think, cottage pie. Let's get started. First we're going to make our potatoes. Alright, so I've got a large pot over high heat. We're going to add a pound of red potatoes that I basically just quartered. You want to cut them up just enough so that they cook through relatively quicker than they would be whole, but have them be big enough that they're fun to mash. And then you're just gonna cover up the potatoes with water, just until there's a nice water roof over them. And then we're gonna let these come to a boil. Once they do so, we're gonna leave them to boil for about 15 minutes until they're tender. Once you've drained your potatoes, I'm gonna add 2 tablespoons of cream cheese. More if you really like cream cheese like I do. A 1/4 cup of cream and 1 egg yolk. Add a pinch of salt, a pinch of pepper, and you just mash it all together. If you don't have a potato masher like I do, that's okay. A fork should be okay. These should be tender enough for a fork to get through them just fine. But it is certainly easier and a little bit more fun with an actual masher. Also, if your potatoes are looking a little dry, you can always add more cream. And like I said, you can always add more cream cheese. Now, I like to keep my potatoes unpeeled. I like that lovely rustic look the skins give them. And that's why I usually use red potatoes when I'm making mashed potatoes or shepherd's pie or cottage pie. Just gives it a nice rustic feel. Makes you feel at home. And I like mine a little lumpy too. But you can make it all nice and smooth if you prefer. Just make sure all the ingredients are mixed together properly. Now we're gonna work on our meat. While our potatoes are boiling, we're gonna put a skillet over medium heat. We're gonna add a tablespoon of olive oil and let that heat up. Now that our oil is heated up, we're gonna add a pound of ground beef. Add a pinch of salt, a pinch of pepper. And we'll break it up and brown it for about 5 minutes. Now that the meat's cooked through, you're gonna add about half of a chopped onion and about half a cup of shredded carrots. I'm gonna stir this into the meat and let it saute for about 5 minutes. Now the reason this recipe is probably sounding really familiar as you watch the steps, it's because it's shepherd's pie. The reason we are calling this cottage pie though is because we're not using lamb, and that's the proper terminology when you're making shepherd's pie that's not lamb. And once the vegetables have softened, you can just take it off the burner and let it cool a bit. While your meat's cooking, you're gonna put a little pot over medium heat. You're gonna add a tablespoon of butter and let it melt down. Alright, now that our butter's melted, we're gonna add about a tablespoon of flour. And we're gonna whisk this in for about 2 minutes until it's not clumping anymore and it's a beautiful golden brown. Okay, once you've got that to the right thickness and color, you're gonna add half a cup of beef broth, about a teaspoon of Worcestershire sauce, and you'll whisk that in, making sure it mixes well with the butter and flour. And you're going to continue doing that until it thickens up for about a minute or 2. Once your gravy is sufficiently thickened, you're going to add it to the meat. You're also going to add about a 1/4 cup each of frozen peas and corn. And these will thaw right out in the hot meat mixture once you add them in, so you don't have to really worry about thawing them. And you just stir that all together until it's nice and creamy. I'm also going to add a pinch of salt and a pinch of pepper. And you'll just make sure that's mixed thoroughly. And finally, we're going to assemble our pie. Alright, I've got myself a little square casserole dish. I'm just putting my meat mixture at the bottom of it. And you're just going to spread that out really evenly. Then you'll top it with your mashed potatoes. Make sure this is also evenly spread. What's great about this particular recipe is it's kind of a lot easier than a traditional shepherd's pie. Oftentimes you'll have to bake it in the oven for a period of time, and when you're short on time but you're craving something really hearty and savory, then unfortunately this becomes something you can't do. But with the recipe I'm going to use, everything's cooked through perfectly, so all you have to do is put it under the broiler to give it a nice golden crust, and then you're done. This is also a perfect way to woo someone, because it's super easy to make, but it tastes like you slaved hours over it. And then I just like to break up a slice of American cheese and dot the top with it, so that when it goes under the broiler it's all melty and yummy. You don't have to add this though if you added extra cream cheese or if you just don't like American cheese. Alright, then you're going to put it in the oven under the broiler that you've preheated to high. And you're just going to let the mashed potatoes come to a golden brown and the cheese will melt for just a couple of minutes. Pair this dish with a Chardonnay or a Bordeaux, and for my beer lovers, grab yourself an amber ale. All my recipes can be found at www.hedgehogshungryhodgepodge.com. You can leave comments and suggestions there or right here on YouTube. I'd love to hear what you think. I'll see you guys next week for another episode of Hedgehog's Hungry Hodgepodge. Bye!